Hello everyone and welcome to the Shaman's Kitchen. So this is where I, Keith and Waxara, cook all our food, and you've seen this many times before. And it's because Waxara is holding the camera, I'm able to introduce things to you in this way. So we're going to make a meal which is based upon macrobiotic tradition. And macrobiotic simply means great life. Macro, great, bios, life. It's all about having great life. And this is the way we're going to do it. So we're going to make a start, and what I've done in advance is I have soaked the rice. You don't have to, I'm using short grain brown rice here. You don't have to soak the rice, but it does make it nicer if you can, at least half an hour. So I'm going to go and wash that and drain that. So I am washing the rice in tap water, but I did soak it using spring water. So after it's had a good wash, I just allow it to drain naturally in there. So we're going to start off by preparing for the rice. My first step is I'm going to just let the last of the water evaporate out, and I'm going to add some coconut oil. So traditional macrobiotic cuisine would not do this, but I do this. For me, the essential tools for cooking is a good sharp knife and a pair of chopsticks. So that is now melting. I will add a little bit of salt, and a really small amount of salt to this. And I've got some cardamom seeds, green ones, grind them up in the pestle and mortar. Just a pinch, really. That's all I want in there. And the other thing, I'm going to need to get some saffron on the go. So a pinch of saffron, and then spring water. Now as soon as you add the spring water to the saffron, it turns this lovely colour. So we'll leave that for a moment. Now that the coconut oil is heated up, I've turned the heat down. I'm now going to add the rice. And I'll give it a vigorous stir. So what's happening is I'm just boiling off that last bit of tap water. It's suddenly gone, hasn't it? You can see it's quietens right down suddenly. But what I'm doing now is I'm just coating each of the grains of rice with the coconut oil. And the next thing, I'm going to add a little bit of this umeboshi paste. And umeboshi is a apricot which comes from Japan, and the apricot is sun-dried and then it's pickled in salt, and it's actually an unripe apricot that they use, but they're called plums. Umeboshi plums is what we call them, but they are actually an apricot. So it's been dried in the sun and then pickled in salt. So that's about ready to go, and as soon as the rice shows the slightest sign of beginning to stick to the bottom, I'll give it a tiny bit more heat. Now I'm going to add something extra from what I would normally do, because we have some leftover linseeds, so we're going to make this rice with these linseeds. The linseeds have been used to make linseed tea. This is leftover, it's gelatinous, and it's rich in omega-3, so this rice is going to have a very special experience as I pour these in. Wow, look at that. That's not like anything you've seen before, probably. It's gooey. Now I will add the saffron water, and now I will boost up the gas to full. And I'll get some more water ready. So this is the way that it works. I used 1 full mug of brown rice. So to that I would normally add approximately 2.5 mugs of liquid. But because I've put those gelatinous linseeds in, I'm going to put a little bit less. I'm going to get rid of 2 and a little bit. Yeah, that's going to be fine. So once that's boiled, it will have the lid on. Now, there are many interesting and mysterious ways of dealing with every aspect of cooking. Shamanic cuisine, macrobiotic cuisine, Ayurvedic. The method we're going to use here is based strongly on the macrobiotic, in as much as once it's boiled, if there's any scum, I'm going to scrape it off. If there isn't, I don't need to bother. I'll put the lid on, turn the heat right down, and then leave it alone and do nothing. So it's very much a do nothing approach once the boiling process has actually happened, and you can simmer. So leave the rice alone, completely undisturbed, and we'll be able to put our full focus on our next dish. So while we're waiting that one to boil, we can get on with some other things. So the compost bin is handy, and I'm going to slice the onion. Now apparently there are films on YouTube about how to slice an onion, so here we go, how to slice an onion. Get a sharp knife. This is a Japanese vegetable knife, and in my opinion it is the most superior knife in existence for cutting vegetables. For meat and other things there are better knives, but when it comes to veg, the Japanese knife is your answer. Now of course, because I am left-handed, I'm doing this all weird for most people. So I'm going to want to remove the top and the bottom, and I'm going to want to cut the onion into half. And once I've done that, I can remove the outer pieces. If I had a lot of onions to cut, what I would do is I'd actually have them all soaking in a bowl of water, and that makes the peeling process so easy if you have a lot to do. But I've only got one to do, I don't care how long it takes, so that's why I'm not bothering in this instance. And then, now I've peeled the onion, the next thing I'm going to do is to sort out the arame. So arame is an example of a sea vegetable, Japanese, and it's a very particular sea vegetable. So I'll show you what it looks like. It looks quite different from a lot of them. It looks a bit like a kind of a black spaghetti. So I'm going to put a certain amount of the arame into this beaker, and I'm just going to cover it with water. And this is the soaking process. So you soak sea vegetables before you cook with them. So I'll just give it some water. And I'm just soaking it for 10 minutes in this water here. So that's all on the go. This one is just starting to boil. I'm just going to drop those little bits of saffron into the water. There's a little bit of scum I'm going to pick off. And so for that I need a bowl, little spoons, a little bit of scum. We'll just pick that off there. A lot of people don't know that some rices actually require you to do this. Just getting rid of dirt. There we go. Just got rid of all that. So now what I can do is I can shut that off and just leave it for about 45 to 60 minutes. Plenty of time for it to do its own thing, and I'll explain to you later how to know that it's actually ready. So what I've done in the meantime is I got some aduki beans. I soaked them in a large amount of spring water overnight, and then drain the water off. That's very important to get rid of the lectins. Then fill with fresh spring water, and I've added some seaweed. This one is called wakame, and when you add a sea vegetable to your beans, what this does is it makes them become so much softer, and all those really good minerals in the sea vegetable actually get absorbed by the beans, so it's win-win-win all the way around. So I cooked those up for less than an hour, maybe 35 minutes, and they were all done nice and soft. So what I'm going to do now is to prepare the vegetables that it's going to go with. So we're going to start off with some coconut oil again, just like we did with the rice. Add a little bit of salt, turn it down, and now it's time to prepare the onion. So this particular style is called slicing onion into half moon shapes. I'm holding my knife in the traditional Korean / Japanese chef's way of holding a knife. I've got a really solid grip. Now I'm doing this so that my fingertips are pointing away from the knife. If you cut like this, it's a really great way to cut your finger, and then you can have some animal food in your food. If you'd rather avoid it, you can do it like this. So I'm gripping the onion without my extremity of the digit showing, and I'm slicing them into what's called half moon shapes. And I can tell as I'm doing this that the knife could be a little bit sharper. In fact, that's going to be a cue. Let's teach you the knife sharpening practice. It's useful to know. Now you do need a good old-fashioned traditional knife to do this. Now that's an example of a knife you can't sharpen. It's got scalloped edges. That's outside of the skill set of most people today. So basically once that goes blunt, you've pretty much had it. So we're going to use a sharpening stone. Here's a simple example of a sharpening stone. So what I will do is I will just get a nice raggedy cloth and put that on the work surface. Now my stone has got the smooth side and a rough side. I'm going to use the rough side to start with. Just a little bit of liquid. You can actually use pretty much anything. Water, oil, some people even use paraffin. So I'm using water, so I'm going to sharpen my knife. As I'm left-handed, basically I'm doing this. That, I'm basically making circles. I'm going to do that for a certain number of times. "25 times. I'm going to do a little bit of this. So mine is a left-handed knife. It's designed for a left-handed person, so I'm only sharpening one edge. Saves a huge amount of time and just gives me the bit sharpened as I want to be sharpened. So I've turned it over, and now I'm going to do it on the smooth side. 25 times as well, and a little bit of this. And that now is now ready to roll. So let me continue slicing that onion, and it now slices like butter. The difference between a blunt knife and a sharp knife is incredible. And there will come a point when it's going to be a bit hard to reach. So when it's hard to reach, what I can do is I can just turn the whole thing to 90 degrees and just finish that off like that. And then the great thing about this knife is I can carry the vegetables. Oops, well, it didn't work very well, but normally I can carry the vegetables on the knife and they go straight into the pan with the hot oil. So continuing. Often people cut onions really fine, but for this dish I prefer the half moon shape. So what we're doing with the onions now is we're doing a process which is called sweating. So what you've got is the onion and the salt and nothing else. That's all there is in there, just the onion and the salt. And I use a stick just to break up any bits which are not completely separate. And then just leave it like that. Give it a good 4 or 5 minutes to sweat, which gives me an opportunity to get some other things done. So it's time to work with the carrots. There are so many ways you can slice a carrot. Get those little bits of onion off the knife first. Now, I've seen people slicing a carrot, and what they'll do is they'll get rid of the top and they'll do this, literally throwing that amount away. How utterly pointless. Just remove the smallest amount possible. Now there are so many ways you can do this. I'm tempted to go for matchsticks. It's a bit of a strange way to cut, but this is what I do. I'm cutting thin slices. like this, and I'll lay them out in a certain way, carrying on. Okay, well, I'm definitely not in my chef mode today because I've done that in a very crude manner, but who cares? You can do it as perfectly or as imperfectly as you like. And then cutting them again this way, and then finally doing them like this. So that's carrots matchstick style. Let's see how I get on with the next one. I'm just suddenly overwhelmed by the beauty of the carrot as I do this. It's a very beautiful vegetable, but they all are when you tune into them. Right. So by the time we've done that, a few minutes will have gone by, so I can check out what's going on with my onions. Now, a highly desirable thing to happen with onions, if you can see a little bit of browning, tiny little bits of brownness, it's just a little bit happening there. So I'm going to give them some more time to soften. We've just given the onions a few more minutes. They are really nice and soft. So because they're so soft, I can add the carrots as the next stage. So what's happening is the salt will have drawn the sweetness out of the onion, and this will prepare a nice bed for the carrots to start to sweat into, and that will cause them to become sweeter as well. So the onions and the carrots are both sweetening up nicely. And to that, in a few minutes, I will add the arame, which is now ready, so I can pour off the soaking liquid. Remember, we just soaked it for 10 minutes, so that can go in a bit. But in the meantime, I'm going to get on and do something else. And we're going to do some sunflower seeds. So seeds are a great gift. It's easy to forget about eating seeds. So I'm going to put a load of these in the bottom of this cast iron pan. And it's very important to wash your hands before you start to cook, because it's just lovely to be able to use your hands when you're cooking, as and when you feel it's appropriate. So I'm going to give them just a couple of minutes of heating, then I'm going to turn it right down. And we're going to dry roast these. And in fact, if you just dry roast sunflower seeds, it makes an amazing snack. But I'm going to add a little bit of something called tamari, which is a form of soy sauce, when they're cooked. So that's just all ready for when that happens. I'll get the bowl ready to put them in for when it's done. Right, so that's probably hot enough to heat up the pan, so now I can turn it right down and just let them do their own thing. So they'll take maybe 10 minutes to do, and when they're nice evenish brown colour over a lot of the face of the seed, it'll be ready. So why sunflower seeds? What is so special about them? Well, sunflower seeds are great for thinking and concentration. So if you've got any work to do with your mind, you want to think and concentrate well, sunflower seeds are a great gift. Also, from the rational mind's perspective, they are great because they are rich in zinc. And zinc is one of these minerals we need to have plenty of. So if you make sure you get the zinc into your system, you're going to be doing fine by eating your sunflower seeds. So this is a great cue to talk about drinking water, because when you're cooking, something you need to do is to drink water. Because once you start to eat, you want to avoid drinking water. And don't drink any during the meal, and don't drink any for at least half an hour after the meal. If you were to drink water at such a time, you're basically diluting all the enzymes which are to digest your food, so don't do it, there's no point. In fact, it's a really good indicator if a person is chronically dehydrated. A chronically dehydrated person will only think of drinking water when they're eating a meal. So that's a sign for you. So the way you get out of it is when you're cooking your food, drink your water. If you consume a pint in the cooking process, you'll be nicely hydrated and your body will be in a good state. So I'm just giving these seeds a little stir. More conventionally minded people use a spoon, but being strange, I will use a chopstick or my fingers. So they're getting on fine. So now the carrots and the onions have blended beautifully. They're really softening nicely. Lovely sweetness, so I'll add some of the aromate to that. And in fact, from the cooking point of view, this dish is almost done, because what I will do next is I'll add the beans. So in go the beans and the cooking water. I want some water to go in there as well, and I'm going to save those beans. I think that's a tiny bit more. Yeah, that's it. I've got the wakame in there as well, so this is going to be a very mineral rich dish, incredibly beneficial for the health and strong tasting. And we'll add some extra things to that at the end, but for now that'll do. So we're just giving this a little stir and they're coming on great. So what this meal is missing is some green. So I'm going to get some green out of the fridge and cook us some green. But just before I do, let me show you how the rice is getting on. That's what it looks like at the moment. So the saffron is giving it this gorgeous colour and it's bubbling away nicely, and we can't see the grains properly just yet, so can leave them for a while longer. Wouldn't normally take the lid off, that was just to show you. So we're going to do a green dish next, and that's going to be courgettes and broccoli. That's always good for me to have more than one pair of sticks, because I've managed to make them sticky, so I can use this to give these a stir, keeping them on the lowest possible heat. You can see they're starting to brown quite nicely, so I just need to remind myself to stir them regularly. And I'm going to want to put my coconut oil into my next saucepan once the water's evaporated off. It hasn't quite done it. In fact, I'll just pour that out there. It evaporates to dryness very quickly. So courgettes, I'm going to use just over half of it. Many ways to cut a courgette. Here's another way that people don't often do: to slice them into matchsticks. So having a matchstick theme with this meal so far with the vegetable cutting. So people chop wood, but they cut or slice vegetables. If someone's talking about chopping vegetables, you can tell they haven't got the respect for the plants, but they need to have. And then cutting it like this. And then finally into matchsticks like this, so they can go in first. Now these are browning off more and more rapidly, so I'll have to remember to stir them a bit more often. In goes the oil, a little bit of salt. I'm going to put a little bit of cayenne pepper in this one, just a little bit, really not much at all. Get that to melt in. As soon as the oil is melted, I can add the courgette. Give these another little stir. I want to make sure this has got enough water. Have a little look there. I'm going to add a little bit of extra water to that dish. Another reason it's good to have a glass of water handy. There we go. So now we can add the courgette. And that's them in. And so then we will add the broccoli. Check the seeds again, how they're doing. Oh yeah, they're getting nice and brown. In fact, they're so nice and brown, I'm prepared to say that will do. If you want to be more meticulous, you can just do it yourself entirely to the seeds, get a perfect browning. I'm not so perfectionistic as some, so in goes this, turn the heat off, in goes the tamari, give them a rapid stir with the sticks, and because the seeds are hot and the pan is hot, that will evaporate off, leaving all the delicious nutrients from the tamari in the seeds. And then finally, it's important to have a bowl handy to put them in so they can cool down. Now that's an absolutely delicious little zinc rich snack on its own, and also to accompany dishes. So these are going quickly. Courgettes are looking great, so I can turn that right down and get on and have some of these. And I do eat some stalk as well. Tend to throw away the older mankier part, eat the softer, more easy to slice part. And you can cut the florets any way you like. If you have them really big, it'll take them longer to cook. If you cut them extremely small, it ends up as a mush, so I like to do something a bit in the middle. The rice is looking quite lively, I'll go check on that in a moment. So after the courgettes have 3 or 4 minutes on their own, maybe even 5 minutes, and I can add that broccoli. So let's have a check of everything. So that's doing fine. Give them a little bit longer to sweat. This is doing superbly well. It's a lovely combination of colours in there. You've got that rich kind of purplish red from the aduki bean, the vibrant orange from the carrot, and the white from the onion. Very nice. This one, the saffron. Oh, now look how that's going. So you can see that the rice grains are absorbing the water so well. So we'll let that continue to do its thing for a while. And that was just enough distraction to say, yes, we can add the broccoli to the courgette. There we go. A little stir. So now I'm going to prepare a couple of things to add to the aduki beans when they're done. So let's see how these are doing. With vegetables I like to add no water, or as little as possible, and let them sweat in their own juices. So that one hasn't had any water added at all. This one has, because it was in the beans. So I'm going to prepare to finish off the beans. So what I want for that is some miso, and I like white miso because I find the flavour is the most delicious and fragrant. And I'm going to put, for 3 people, I'm going to put just over 1.5 teaspoons. I'm going to add it to some water and stir it. And when the dish is finished and its heat is off, I will add that, and that will do something amazing to the flavour. And also I'm going to get this creamed coconut, and I'm going to slice a bit of this, not very much really, that will do, and I'm going to add that. It's going to make it even more creamy and delicious. And that's it. So we've got the old sunflower seeds, they're done. For people that are a little bit hungry, you can have a try these before the meal is ready. The main issue with sunflower seeds is stopping eating them. It's quite difficult. It's important to check the vegetables, make sure they're not sticking to the bottom of the pan. They're not, but they will very soon, so I'll just put a tiny bit of water, really just a little drop there to keep them going. These are basically ready, so I can turn them off. And actually I'm going to give them a little extra water because I'm going to add some things which are going to thicken them, so I can afford to give them a bit of extra water at this point. Turn them off and then see what the rice is doing. Now the rice looks like it's nearly done. You can see all these little linseeds have sprinkled themselves out over the top. When I poke my chopstick in, now if I can feel a resistance, which I can, that means the rice is done. So if I was to move my chopstick around the floor of the pan easily, it would be not done. So it's done, heat off, lid on, and ideally, going from the Ayurvedic tradition, it's great to let your rice rest just for a few minutes before you eat it. So it means we're incredibly close to being ready. So I'm going to add my final ingredients to the dooky bean dish. So this is the cream coconut from earlier, a little bit of that. The heat is off, so I can now add the miso as well. In that goes too. And then just stir that around. And that will be amazing. Those two little ingredients will make all the difference in the overall flavour of the end result. So the rice is done, just waiting a few minutes for it to rest. The beans are done. So now the question is, what's going on here? So macrobiotic tradition, if you have a grain and a bean and a vegetable, vegans amongst you take notice, you get all the essential amino acids to build your proteins. If you have vegetables plus grains, you're pretty much there. If you have beans plus grains, you're pretty much there. If you have whichever way of those, if you have the two, but if you've got all three together, you've got the magic. And you throw in some seeds there, then you've got an abundance. So this is a way to make sure that vegans never run out of protein by having a grain, a bean or a pea, and a vegetable, and a seed as well. And with those seed vegetables, we had the wakame and the arame. You've got a wonderful nutrient blast from the minerals too. So that's it, we're ready. We're going to go and eat our food now. So it's all done, so it's time to go and eat our food. Thank you very much.